All right, week 7. Testing out a new microphone. Hopefully the audio quality is a little bit better. Otherwise, we'll abandon the whole headset thing. Um, it's gonna be odd though, because I'm usually fiddling with my hat, fiddling, scratch my face. We'll see if this keeps my hands a little more controlled. Anyway, we'll try to keep this one under 34 minutes. Should go a little faster. So, without further ado, hitting it with my Tier 1 bets. So, just to explain again, Tier 1 bets, these are bets I'm hammering this week, I feel really good about. Tier 2 bets are bets I still like one side better than the other for whatever reason. These might just be more like fun plays or just games I want a piece of, but not necessarily games I'm like recommending other people go out. I can see it go either way. Um, not as confident, not like a strong recommend for me, but still, why I like a side and why I'm doing it. And then I'll hit my avoids. So on bye this week, we got Ravens, Dolphins, Vikings, and Colts. And thank goodness the Vikings are on bye this week, so I don't have to watch them. I just need a break right now. So first tier 1 bet, Browns at Bengals. So might surprise some of you guys, but I am actually going to pick the Browns in this one. So line is currently set at Browns minus 3-point favorites. So pretty close. And I mean, the Bengals have definitely showed some spunk. This is at Bengals. Bengals have shown some spunk. Almost upset the Colts last week. Allowed the Colts to come back and win that game. And the Colts is pretty decent defense. But ultimately, what I think when I look at this game, I just think of Browns defense not very good. Defensive line I think is kind of okay. I think Sheldon Richardson's still there, but the Bengals, we know the Bengals offensive line is pretty bad. I don't really. I think they'll match up okay. I don't think that's necessarily the story of this game. The story of this game, I think, is Kareem Hunt and the Browns being able to just assert their will and run all over the Bengals. I think this is the kind, we saw this for a couple games before the Browns faced the Steelers. When they're facing a team with a bad defense and they can just run the ball and do things the way Kevin Stefanski wants to do them, they can be really hard to beat. And I think that's the kind of game this is going to be. I think Kareem Hunt is going to have a really good day. I don't even care if Baker doesn't play. Case Keenum is serviceable enough. I just think they'll be able to run the ball, control that game, and win. And -3 isn't too much for them to cover. It's just field goal. Next game I'm taking Cowboys at Washington. So right now this game is a pick'em, which makes sense, right? Cowboys are really bad. They look terrible against the Cardinals on Monday night. Meanwhile, Washington team, I think they're 1-5. I can't remember. Did they beat the Giants or did they lose to the Giants? Can't remember. But they're a bad team. But it's hard to not be too reactionary to what the Cowboys did on Monday night. But they're down their starting quarterback. We got Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton should have been a serviceable veteran backup. Did not look like it against the Cardinals. So you got to take that part with a grain of salt. But ultimately, the Broncos are down both their starting tackles. Zach Martin went out. Their stud, right? He's probably a left guard. I don't know. He's a starting guard for them. He went out of the game with a concussion. Probably won't play this week. And the Washington D-line is really good. They're the top 2 defensive lines probably in the NFL, right up there with the Buccaneers. So I just think that they're going to be able to get after Andy Dalton, give him no time to throw, stuff Zeke. They're going to have a really hard time going on offense. Meanwhile, we know that the Cowboys' defense is really bad. And I think Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, and Kyle Allen will be able to do enough to ultimately put up some points and win this game. And it's at Washington. So I'm putting basically all the money that I kind of lost on the Cowboys last week. I'm rolling that over and chasing a little bit and putting it on the Washington team. But I actually feel good about this. I don't think I'm just being emotional and reactionary. I think the Cowboys are a sorry club right now. I think they made a terrible coaching hire. And that's coming back to bite them when they faced all this adversity. So feel good about that one, taking the Washington team. Next game I got Cardinals, the Seahawks at Cardinals. Right now the Seahawks are -3 point favorites on the road. Um, and I mean, the Hawks, they were dominant for the first 4 games. Then, were really close against the Vikings. And we know that the Vikings are not a very good team. Not sure how much stock I want to take in that. I mean, the Vikings played really well that day. I don't think that. I mean, the Hawks eventually won at the last minute, which is something good teams do. I just think the Seahawks are a much better team than the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals stomped on the Cowboys, but it wasn't even as dominant as people want to say. Like, yeah, they finally got Kenyon Drake going, who, there's one or two defenses that can make him look good. The Cowboys being one of them, and a lot of their points were off of short touchdowns because Zeke kept dropping the ball. So I think definitely not going to be too reactionary off of what happened in the Cowboys game. I think that was more about the Cowboys than it was about the Cardinals. Meanwhile, the Hawks, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Lockett has been pretty quiet. If they need him, they can get him going. Not sure if Chris Carson's healthy or not, but I think they'll be able to find a running back to get the job done against the Cardinals. So yeah, taking the Hawks, feeling pretty confident about that one, even though it's a road game. Next tier 1 bet. This one I don't understand. So this one is Buccaneers at Raiders. This is Sunday Night Football. I mean, I watched the Packers game. It seems like the Bucs have arrived. Their defense was unstoppable against the Packers. Their offense had finally had all its pieces on the field, and they were clicking. Meanwhile, the Raiders upset. They upset the Chiefs. But that game still feels fluky, Like, the Raiders have been up and down, and I don't buy in right now that they're a good team, and that wasn't just kind of a one-time thing, opening up their new stadium. So I am a little afraid of the Raiders, deciding to be good again. But ultimately, the Buccaneers defense and the Buccaneers offense looked great. I think they finally kind of arrived as that elite team people were expecting and treating them like. I think the defensive line can shut down Josh Jacobs, and they can, put some pressure on Derek Carr, and then you're trying to make, Derek Carr, beat Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Gronk, showing signs of life, and Ronald Jones, who's had a couple consecutive 100-yard games. So I'm going to take the Bucs. I'm going to feel pretty good about it. I don't know why. For some reason, this is -3, and I think the money's coming in on the Raiders, which I don't get at all. I'll take the Bucs every time. Bears at Rams is my last tier 1 bet. Bears are +5.5 point underdogs on the road against the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. So I do not like the Bears, and I don't think it's because I'm just a Vikings fan. Don't like the Bears. The Bears have been a pretty sorry club for a couple of years now. But ultimately, people keep talking, are they the best 5-1 team or the worst 5-1 team in history? I don't really care about that. What I care about is they have a good defense, and if you look at the scores and the outcomes of their games, they tend to be within one score, pretty low scoring affairs. And so when you look at that and you look at there's a 5.5 point spread, that's pretty big considering what the Bears defense have been able to do. And I mean, I feel like a Bears and Rams is kind of a coin flip matchup. I don't think the Rams are that good. They haven't really shown themselves to be that good. Other than the Bills game where they ended up blowing it in the end, they haven't really performed that well against a good team. I think, didn't they just lose the 49ers, who are dealing with their own struggles? So I don't understand why the Rams are -5.5 point favorites in this. I feel like these are pretty comparable teams. The Bears offense, I mean, that is where this could fail, is the Rams defense. They have some people. They got Jalen Ramsey. They got Aaron Donald in the middle. But the Bears offense is ugly. I mean, they can't get their run game going with David Montgomery. Nick Foles just doesn't look that good. Who is their wide receiver? Oh, Allen Robinson's pretty good. He's been causing interceptions. His hands. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it's just the sheer number of targets. But they had a guy named Mooney who showed a little bit when I was watching them. So that's where it could fall flat. But I don't know why you'd trust the Rams at this point. I'm going to take the Bears and the 5.5 points, and I'm not going to think too much about it. I'm keeping it as a tier one bet. I like the Bears in this one. Tier 2 bets. So this one is not a game I was thinking I was going to bet on, but we had Giants at Eagles Thursday night football. Eagles are -4 point favorites at home. I'm seeing them at -4.5 points, which is maybe like a point more than I'd like, but the Giants are really bad, and the Eagles have shown a ton of spunk competing with Baltimore 2 weeks ago and competing with the Steelers last week. I'm not going to pick against them in any kind of game like this. Like, granted, they did just lose Miles Sanders. He's probably not going to play. You got Boston Scott filling in. He definitely isn't the same kind of weapon. Zach Ertz just went out with a high ankle sprain. I think he's not going to go, but Zach Ertz has been putting in some pretty questionable performances anyway. So it's like same old with the Eagles. Like, tons of injuries. They're going to have to make do with whatever pass catchers they got. And they've just had a lot of spunk. And the way Wentz has looked and just the fire he has right now, I just think they're a well-coached team. And they're still bought in despite things not going their way. They're still in contention and probably my favorite to win that division. So I think they're going to bring it. I think they're going to bring it this week, and I just think the Giants are too bad. I'll take the Eagles. Next tier 2 bet, definitely a more interesting matchup, a game I'm far more likely to watch. Steelers at Titans. So right now the Steelers are 1.5 point favorites at Tennessee. And man, a couple weeks ago I felt really good about the Steelers, taking it to the Titans. But the Titans have shown some good stuff in the last couple weeks. I mean, their offenses continue to be really good. Derrick Henry showing a little more than he did through like the first 3 games. Basically winning that game against the Texans by himself at the end there. I guess Tannehill made some plays too, but he's an unstoppable force. And Tannehill, the way he's been playing, and ultimately I really like Mike Vrabel, their coach. I just think he's a good coach. He's got everyone in that locker room locked in and focused. But so they're just going to be a tough team to beat. Any given week with the talent they have. But they did just lose. I think they're potentially going to be down Jonnu Smith, and they did just lose their starting left tackle Taylor Lewan, which. The only reason I have them as a tier 2 is because of Vrabel and Tannehill and just the respect I have for them being able to compete in any game. But they just lost their starting left tackle. They might be without one of their best offensive weapons in Jonnu Smith. And the Steelers, they did just lose Devin Bush for the year, who was the starting middle linebacker, fast, pretty good guy. But they've just been so good. And I still think they haven't reached what they could be, the Steelers. Haven't reached what they can be on offense yet. I think Big Ben is still kind of slowly working his way back in. He's definitely not slinging it as much as he used to in the past. I think he's kind of just getting warmed up. They're probably getting Deontay Johnson back. I just like the Steelers. It's tough. They would have to go to 7-0. It's tough to win 7 straight games in the NFL, but 1.5 points. I'm gonna keep riding the Steelers to win that game. But tier 2 bet, I could definitely see the Titans hanging in there and just being a really fun game to watch. We'll have to see. Without Taylor Lewan, it could be a bad day for the Titans. So tier 2 continued. I got Bills at Jets. I'm going to take the Bills -13 at Jets. I think this is kind of a get-right game for the Bills, and I have no faith in the Jets. They're pretty bad, so I'm not going to think too much about it. I'm going to take the Bills -13. Not going to sell the farm on it. This is a tier 2 bet because a lot of things can happen, 13 points, but I don't know why the Jets have given you any reason to be scared. Next week, I think they play the Chiefs, and I saw the line at -22 in favor of the Chiefs. No way I'm touching that, but we'll get to that next week. Packers at Texans, another tier 2 bet for me. The Packers looked rough against the Buccaneers. And the Texans have looked a lot better these last 2 weeks. They competed. I can't remember who they played. 2 weeks ago. I mean, they just played the Titans and they competed right down to the wire, took that game to overtime. The week before, I think they upset someone. I can't quite remember, but they've just looked a lot better since firing Bill O'Brien. And Brandon Cooks is the offense has been looking better. Brandon Cooks has really bounced up. I think that was a combination of just offensive change and him just getting a little healthier. But I still like the Packers in this one. I mean, the Packers D, I think, should bounce back compared to what they did against the Buccaneers. I think they're still a pretty solid club, and Mike Pettin on the defense is kind of the reason they won so many games last year. And I still think they're a pretty formidable defense when Zadarius Smith's going. And then you got Jair Alexander as an emerging corner there in the backfield. And then you got Kenny Clark, another week healthier in the middle. Just to cause some havoc on a Texans O-line that it really isn't that good. And the Packers I mean, compared to what they faced last week against the Buccaneers, the Packers offense, this is kind of going to be a get-right game for them too. Like, the Texans defense is not very good, especially their run defense. So Aaron Jones, start him in fantasy if you got him. Duh. Devontae Adams, another week back, kind of getting into the system. I just think it's a much softer defense, and they're going to be looking to get right. So I'll take the Packers minus 3.5. I actually feel pretty good about that. I don't know. I think the only reason I have it as a tier 2 is because the Packers burned me last week, and because the Texans have looked so much better lately, and I'm still trying to get a good read on them. But I actually feel pretty good about that one. Another tier 2. This one I have less of a reason for. It's 49ers at 49ers at Patriots. So right now, I'm really leaning towards the 49ers at plus 2.5. So 49ers coming in as underdogs into Foxborough. Not an easy place to win, but we just watched the Broncos do it in pretty non-spectacular fashion. And I just kind of have growing confidence right now in the 49ers. They had a down moment or a game or two when they were just dealing with amount of injuries that even they couldn't surpass. But we saw before, Jimmy Garoppolo went out, that even with all their defensive line injuries, they still had a really good defense and a good defensive line. And I feel like we're seeing that again now. And on offense, they just lost Mostert, so they'll have to. I mean, they always run a running back by committee, so I think they'll be able to fill in, Jerick McKinnon and some other running backs, and be serviceable, in the complex kind of running scheme that Kyle Shanahan runs. And, Kittle is playing some of the best football that's ever been played by a tight end. And Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and they got pieces there. I don't know. I'm just kind of growing in confidence despite the injuries on the 49ers. And the Pats, the Pats were healthy last week, as far as I know. And they got beat by a Broncos team that isn't very good. And they've just... they were leaning on Cam Newton heavily, and the reinforcements aren't coming. They had a good first couple weeks, but I don't know if teams have kind of figured it out. But they got nothing. They have some kind of okay running backs. They got Cam Newton and his legs, but not so much his arm. And he's also got no one to throw to except gray-haired Julian Edelman and bust and kill Harry. I don't know if you're a Pats fan. I know you've been enjoying that success. A lot of Super Bowl rings. It's been an easy road for you guys, but not a lot of hope right now as far as I'm concerned. Last tier 2 bet I have is Jags at Chargers. This one I feel I don't know why I don't feel better about this one. So the Chargers have been playing lights out football. Is it Justin Herbert? Yeah, Justin Herbert's been looking unreal. And I don't know. I really like the Chargers. I think their defense is good despite some kind of high profile injuries. Mike Williams really showed a connection last week or 2 weeks ago, because I think they were on bye, with Mike Williams and Justin Herbert. We're showing a nice connection. I think Keenan Allen is probably going to miss this game, so that's not good. Hunter Henry has kind of yet to emerge this season. But the Jaguars have looked completely inept. So there's no reason the Chargers shouldn't be able to kind of have their way with them and be able to mostly shut down the Jaguars' offense with their defense. I think where I get stuck is it's 7.5 points. So, I mean, 7.5 points is quite a bit. And a lot, God, if it was like 6.5, maybe I'd feel a little better about it. I don't know. 7.5 is scaring me. And ultimately, here's the kicker. Ultimately, I think the Chargers are a team that wants to run the ball. We've seen them passing. We've seen this high-flying passing attack when they were facing good teams and they were losing. This is a game they're going to be winning. And I think they're a team that, at their core, they want to run the ball. They just haven't been able to because they've been fighting bad game scripts and fighting better teams to try to stay in them. And I think this week they're going to be facing a team that's much worse than them. And they're going to lean on Justin Jackson and who's the other guy? Josh Kelly. So Josh Kelly and Justin Jackson, I think, are going to get a lot of work. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot more than we've seen them. I think we're going to see a lot less out of Justin Herbert than we normally do. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be an idiot. But I think it's kind of a trap if you pick up Justin Herbert and try to start him in fantasy this week, seeing that juicy Jags matchup. Because I think when they don't have to throw the ball, they're not going to ask him to do that much. So that's why I'm scared of the -7.5. Not so much that I'm going to avoid this game altogether, but enough that it's not a tier 1 bet for me. All right, wrapping this up, I got a few avoids. Lions at Falcons. Right now, the Falcons are favored -2.5, and after seeing what they did to the Vikings, I can definitely see the argument that they should be favored by more. The Lions are not a particularly good team, but I think we have two teams here where we have the Lions have a good offense, Kenny Golladay, Matt Stafford, DeAndre Swift, I don't know, TJ Hawkinson. So Lions got a good offense, mediocre defense. Falcons, on the other hand, have a great offense when it's going, especially with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley back, but their defense is probably even worse than the Lions. So it's like good offense, mediocre defense versus great offense, really bad defense. And I could just see it going either way. These teams are so streaky. I'm leaning towards the Falcons, but not enough. I'm uncertain enough that I'm probably just going to avoid this game. Panthers at Saints. So this game right now, Saints are -7.5 point favorites at home. And the Saints, I don't know, the Saints just really haven't been that lights out throughout the season. I mean, that's the side I'm leaning towards, but the Panthers have played kind of above their talent level. I think so far, signs are good that they're just have hired some pretty good coaches there. And I think they play a brand of football that has made them able to compete in a few games. Teddy Bridgewater, Mike Davis, Robbie Anderson, one of my favorite players. I love to see him going. And then they still got like DJ Moore that has been slow to get started, but now he's starting to look better. So I think they're good enough, and the Saints just really haven't been that lights out. They should have Michael Thomas back, but I don't know. Honestly, I'm probably sleeping on Kamara. I mean, Kamara is such a good weapon. Saints are probably going to... I mean, I'm leaning Saints -7.5, but NFC South division game, I don't know. I'm probably going to just avoid it. -7.5 points is just a little much. Chiefs at Broncos. So right now, Chiefs are -9.5 point favorites at Broncos. And, I mean, the Broncos defense has been performing surprisingly well, considering, the loss of Von Miller and kind of the personnel they have. And it probably shouldn't be that surprising. Like, Vic Fangio was hired for a reason. He's a great defensive coach. And I think Drew Lock, has more to show than he did last week against the Patriots. I think was it Tim Patrick, kind of emerging as a young wide receiver for them. And then they got Jerry Jeudy still, who hasn't quite shown what he has yet. Noah Fant might be back for this game, might not really sure. Two-headed running attack with Philip Lindsay, and I'd expect Melvin Gordon to play in this one. I don't know. I think they can kind of put up a fight in a division game against the Chiefs, who's definitely... they were dominant this last week, but they've definitely shown some chinks in their armor. So 9.5 points, double-digit, 2-score win. It's a little too rich for my blood. I'm just going to kind of avoid this game. I'm just kind of a coward when it gets into those big 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 points with the Chiefs. I don't know why. I'm sure they cover it more often than not, but I get scared. So that's all I got. Stay tuned for I don't know. That's all. That's all I got for this week. I'll probably be posting another recap, picks and avoids for next week. So if you like the content, check it out. Also check out my Twitter at favorite fade on Twitter. Some more, I don't know, just different angles I'm looking at, updates throughout the week. If you want maybe a little more real time updates throughout the week, things I'm watching, that's something to check out. Anyway, thanks.